A cold gust of wind howled through the darkened streets as Special Agent Mark Reynolds stepped out of his black SUV, adjusting the strap of his holster. His partner, Agent Lisa Carter, shut her door and glanced around, her breath visible in the frigid air. It was supposed to be a routine drive back to headquarters after a long shift, until they saw the dog. At first Mark barely noticed it. Just a shaggy, mud-covered golden retriever standing under a flickering street lamp. But then the dog did something odd. It didn't just look lost or scared, it locked eyes with him. Desperate. Pleading. Lisa frowned. "Something's off," she muttered. The dog barked once, then turned and ran a few steps before stopping, looking back at them. It wanted them to follow. Mark exchanged a glance with Lisa. They had seen strange things in their line of work, but something about this sent a shiver down his spine. Maybe it was exhaustion playing tricks on him, or maybe it was pure instinct, but something told him they needed to go. "Let's see what this is about," he said, unclipping his flashlight. The dog led them through the silent streets, past rows of dark houses, deeper into the suburban neighborhood. The further they went, the quieter it became. No cars. No late-night joggers. Just an eerie stillness that made Mark's fingers tighten around his gun. After what felt like miles, the retriever stopped in front of a house at the end of a cul-de-sac. The place was dark, too dark. No porch lights, no glow from a TV inside. Just an empty silence that pressed down on them like a heavy weight. Lisa took a step forward, her voice barely above a whisper. "This house is abandoned." Mark's throat tightened. He had that creeping feeling, the one he always got before walking into something he couldn't explain. He checked his phone, no signal. Lisa's had the same result. The dog whined and scratched at the door. Mark hesitated. Every instinct told him not to go inside. But the way the dog trembled, the way it refused to leave, sent a chill through him. This wasn't just some stray. It had brought them here for a reason. Then they heard it. A noise from inside. Faint. Almost like movement. Lisa reached for the doorknob, unlocked. It creaked as she slowly pushed it open, revealing nothing but blackness inside. The air smelled stale, untouched. But as they stepped in, the temperature dropped. Freezing. A shuffling sound came from deeper within the house. Not footsteps, but something else. Something unnatural. Then a whisper. Faint. Right behind them. Mark spun around, heart pounding. There was nothing there. And yet, in that moment he knew. They weren't alone. Lisa exhaled slowly, her fingers tightening around the flashlight as she swept the beam across the empty living room. Dust floated in the air, illuminated in the cold, pale light. The house had been abandoned for a long time, years maybe. The wallpaper was peeling, and the wooden floor creaked under their weight. But that wasn't what unsettled her. It was the silence. It felt too heavy, too intentional, as if something was holding its breath, waiting. Mark stepped forward, careful, controlled. The dog followed close behind, ears flattened, tail low. It didn't bark anymore. It only stared into the darkness ahead, body tense. "Feels like someone's watching us," Lisa muttered, her voice barely above a whisper. Mark nodded. He felt it too. That prickling sensation along the back of his neck, the way his instincts screamed that they shouldn't be here. But they were past the point of turning back. His flashlight traced the edges of the room. Old furniture covered in sheets, a dusty mirror hanging crookedly on the wall, its glass cracked. Then something caught his eye. Picture frame on the floor. Face down. Mark crouched, picking it up carefully. He wiped away the dust with his sleeve and felt his stomach tighten as he looked at the image. Family. A man, a woman, and a young girl, smiling, happy. The golden retriever sat beside them, its fur clean and shining in the sunlight. The same dog that had led them here. Lisa looked over his shoulder. "That's not possible," she whispered. Mark turned to the dog, now watching him with those same desperate eyes. If this was the same family's pet, where were they? And why had it been wandering the streets alone? Sound came from upstairs. Soft, deliberate, like something shifting. Lisa's hand hovered near her gun. "That's not the wind," she murmured. Mark stood up, muscles tensed. They both knew the house had been empty when they entered. No fresh footprints in the dust, no signs of life. And yet, something was moving. The dog whined, stepping closer to them, pressing its body against Mark's leg. Lisa flicked off her flashlight. "We shouldn't be here," she said. Mark agreed, but they needed answers. The dog had brought them here for a reason, and whatever was upstairs, it wasn't normal. He nodded toward the staircase. Lisa exhaled sharply but didn't argue. They moved slowly, each step groaning under their weight. The second floor was darker, the air even colder. A hallway stretched before them, doors slightly ajar, leading into shadowed rooms. Mark pointed toward the farthest door. It was open just enough for a sliver of moonlight to spill inside. Lisa went first, pushing it wider. The room was empty. At least that's what they thought, until Mark's flashlight caught something against the far wall. Words, scrawled in uneven, jagged handwriting, covering every inch of the peeling wallpaper. "Help yous. It comes at night. We never left." Mark's pulse hammered in his ears. Lisa swallowed hard. Then, behind them, something creaked. Low, deliberate, the sound of a door closing. Lisa spun around, her breath catching in her throat. The hallway behind them was empty, but the door to the room they had just entered was now almost shut. Mark stepped forward, pushing it open with the barrel of his gun. His grip steady despite the unease crawling up his spine. Nothing. No movement, no sound. Only the weight of something unseen pressing down on them. Lisa exhaled sharply. "We need to get out of here." Mark nodded, but his gaze drifted back to the words on the wall. "We never left." He glanced at the dog, still glued to his side, its body rigid. This wasn't just a missing person case. Something else was wrong here. A soft thud echoed from the room next door. Mark and Lisa turned in unison, weapons raised. The door was shut, but the sound had been unmistakable. Something shifting, moving. Lisa reached for the knob, pausing for a split second before pushing it open. The room was small, a child's bedroom. Moonlight filtered through torn curtains, casting pale streaks across the faded pink wallpaper. A tiny wooden bed sat in the corner, neatly made, as if waiting for someone to return. A stuffed rabbit lay on the floor, its button eyes staring blankly upward. And then they saw it. Footprints. Small, bare footprints imprinted in the dust, leading from the bed to the middle of the room. But they stopped there. No other marks, no sign of where they had gone. Lisa's fingers twitched near her holster. "Mark, tell me I'm not seeing this." Mark didn't answer. He stepped forward cautiously, scanning every corner, but there was no sign of anyone. No way those footprints could exist without. Closet door creaked. Lisa reacted instantly, aiming her gun at the narrow wooden door, her heartbeat hammering against her ribs. "Who's in there?" she called out. Silence. Mark tightened his grip on his weapon. "Come out, hands where we can see them." Nothing. The air inside the room felt thicker, the quiet pressing in like a living thing. Lisa shot Mark a glance before reaching for the handle. One deep breath, then she yanked it open. Me. No clothes, no boxes, just an old cracked mirror leaning against the back wall. But as Mark's flashlight swept over the glass, his stomach twisted. There was a reflection. Not of them. A little girl stood in the mirror's surface, head slightly tilted, dark eyes staring back. She wore a faded dress, her bare feet barely touching the floor. But the most terrifying part, she wasn't in the room. Only in the mirror. Lisa took a step back, the color draining from her face. "Mark." The girl moved. Not in the mirror. In the room. A whisper drifted through the air, soft but clear. "Help me." Then the lights flickered. A sharp bang came from downstairs. A door slamming. The dog barked wildly, running toward the hallway. Mark turned to Lisa. His voice low but urgent. "We're not alone." Lisa's hands trembled slightly, but she nodded. They had come looking for answers. Now they were trapped in the middle of something they couldn't explain. And whatever was in this house wasn't letting them go. The dog bolted down the hallway, its frantic barking echoing through the house. Mark and Lisa followed without hesitation, their footsteps pounding against the creaky wooden floor. The moment they reached the top of the stairs, the barking stopped. Silence swallowed the space again, thick and suffocating. Mark aimed his flashlight downward, sweeping the beam across the entryway. The front door was wide open, swaying slightly as if someone or something had just passed through. Lisa whispered, "That door was locked when we came in." Mark's pulse hammered in his ears. The dog was gone. Vanished, just like the footprints in the dust. Just like the girl in the mirror. Then the air changed. A heavy pressure settled in, like an unseen weight pressing against their chests. Lisa shuddered. "You feel that?" Mark nodded. He wasn't sure how to explain it, but every fiber of his being screamed at him to leave. And yet, something about the house refused to let them go. A sudden scraping sound came from the kitchen. Low. Methodical. Lisa raised her gun. Mark did the same. They moved cautiously, following the sound. The flashlight beams flickered slightly as they stepped inside. The kitchen was untouched. Dust-covered countertops, an old wooden table, cabinets slightly ajar. But the refrigerator door was wide open, its light flickering weakly. Lisa's gaze darted across the room. That wasn't open before. Mark took a slow step forward, heart pounding. The scraping sound had stopped. The only thing he could hear was his own breathing. Then a whisper so faint it barely registered. "It's still here." Lisa stiffened. "Did you hear that?" Mark barely nodded before a shadow shifted in his peripheral vision. He spun, gun raised, but there was nothing there. The back door stood open now, revealing the pitch-black backyard beyond. The wind outside barely stirred, yet the door creaked as if someone had just pushed it. Then came the footsteps. Not theirs. Heavy, deliberate steps moving toward them, not from outside but from inside the house. Lisa's breath hitched. Upstairs. Mark didn't need to respond. He turned, aiming his flashlight up the staircase. The hallway they had just left was now darker than before, as if something had swallowed the light. Then they saw it. Figure. Standing at the top of the stairs, barely visible in the shadows. Not moving. Not breathing. Just watching. Mark's finger hovered over the trigger. "Who are you?" His voice came out steadier than he felt. No response. Lisa whispered, "Mark, that's not a person." The figure shifted. Not like someone turning but like something distorting, its shape stretching, its edges blurring. The air around it rippled, and then, before either of them could react, the lights in the house went out completely. Pitch black. Lisa gasped, and Mark reached blindly for her, grabbing her wrist. A deep, suffocating silence filled the space, broken only by the sound of something moving. Closer. Then the whisper came again, right next to Mark's ear. "It's too late." Mark yanked Lisa forward, his pulse hammering in his ears as the whisper lingered like ice against his skin. His flashlight flickered, barely cutting through the oppressive darkness. The air felt heavier now, thick and suffocating, as if the walls themselves were closing in. Then came the sound. A deep guttural growl. Not from the dog, this was something else. Something wrong. It reverberated through the floor, shaking the walls ever so slightly. Lisa's fingers dug into Mark's arm. "That's not human," she whispered. The words barely left her mouth before the figure at the top of the stairs moved. Not walking, gliding. Its shape remained undefined, shifting like a shadow cast in flickering candlelight. Mark's body locked up, his instincts screaming at him to run, but his feet wouldn't move. Then the dog barked. Not from outside. From inside the house. The golden retriever stood in the hallway at the top of the stairs, directly in front of the shifting figure. Its teeth were bared, fur bristling. It wasn't afraid anymore. It was protecting something. Or someone. A soft voice broke through the darkness. "Help us." Mark's flashlight flickered again, and for a split second he saw them. Man, woman, little girl, the family from the photograph. But their faces were pale, their eyes hollow, and their mouths open in silent screams. Then, just as quickly, they vanished, swallowed by the shifting darkness. Lisa's grip on her gun tightened. "Mark, what are we supposed to do?" Before he could answer, the dog lunged. Snarling, it leapt toward the shadowy figure, its body crashing into the darkness. A sharp yelp echoed through the house, followed by a sound Mark couldn't explain, like the air itself tearing apart. The pressure in the room lifted for a brief second. Mark seized the moment, grabbing Lisa's wrist and pulling her toward the stairs. "We have to go. Now." They bolted for the front door, but before they reached it, the walls trembled, the floor beneath them groaning like it was alive. A deafening bang exploded behind them. Lisa screamed as the staircase they had just come from shattered, collapsing into splintered wood and dust. "Crap." Mark coughed, his lungs burning from the debris-filled air. He turned to Lisa, but before he could speak, a new sound filled the space. A door creaking open. Low. Deliberate. The basement. The darkness there wasn't like the rest of the house. It didn't just look dark. It felt like an open mouth, waiting to swallow them whole. Then came the whisper again, but this time it wasn't soft. It was everywhere. "You shouldn't have come." Mark's breath came in short, ragged gasps as he turned toward the basement door. The darkness beyond it wasn't just an absence of light. It felt alive, shifting, waiting. Lisa grabbed his arm, her fingers ice cold. "We are not going down there," she whispered. But then the dog barked again. Faint, weak. It was coming from below. Mark swallowed hard. "We have no choice." The floor beneath them groaned, the walls trembling like the house itself was trying to force them forward. The pressure in the air was suffocating, pressing down on their lungs. Lisa hesitated only a second before gripping her flashlight tighter and nodding. Together they stepped forward. The basement stairs were steep, their feet kicking up dust as they descended. The deeper they went, the colder it became, as if they were walking into something unnatural. The moment they reached the bottom, the door behind them slammed shut. Lisa whirled around, banging against it. "No, no, no." Mark's flashlight flickered. The basement was larger than expected, stretching into the shadows. And in the center of it, something was waiting. Family. They stood motionless, their faces pale, eyes hollow. But this time they weren't distorted, weren't flickering in and out of existence. They were real. "Crap." The dog limped toward them, stopping at the little girl's feet. She knelt, burying her small fingers in its fur. "He came back," she whispered. Lisa took a cautious step forward. "Who did this to you?" The mother lifted a trembling hand, pointing to the farthest corner of the basement. Mark turned his flashlight. At first, it looked like nothing was there, just old wooden beams and rotting stone. But then the shadows moved. Not like something stepping forward, like something unfolding. A shape took form, tall, twisting, its limbs stretching too far. It had been there the whole time, waiting, feeding on the house, on the family, on them. Mark's blood ran cold. The whisper returned, but this time it wasn't coming from behind them. Came from inside their heads. "Stay." Lisa fired. A deafening shot rang out, but the bullet never hit anything. It vanished into the darkness, swallowed whole. The thing didn't flinch. It only smiled. The walls of the basement pulsed. The air turned heavy again, the kind of pressure that squeezed the breath from their lungs. The girl looked up at Mark, her eyes pleading. "You have to stop it. Before it takes you too." The dog whimpered. Mark clenched his jaw. "How?" The girl pointed to the ground. His flashlight beam followed, and then he saw it. Circle. Carved deep into the floor, filled with old rust-colored stains. Trap. The thing was bound here. But only barely. Lisa grabbed his arm. "Mark, if it's trapped, we just need to." The creature moved. Not toward them but toward the family. They screamed. The dog barked desperately, snapping at the air as the thing's twisted limbs stretched toward the little girl. Mark didn't think. He reacted. He reached into his pocket, fingers closing around the lighter he always carried. His hands were shaking, but he flicked the flame to life and tossed it into the circle. The moment the fire touched the markings, the air ripped apart. A sound erupted, high-pitched, unearthly. The basement shook. The creature let out a shriek, its form distorting, breaking apart. The walls cracked, dust rained from above, and then silence. When the dust cleared, the basement was empty. The creature was gone. The little girl smiled. The family looked at peace. Lisa let out a shaky breath. Did we? But before she could finish, the girl's eyes met Mark's. And then she whispered something that sent ice through his veins. It's not over. Then, just like that, the family vanished. The dog let out one last quiet whimper, then turned and walked up the stairs. The basement door swung open on its own. Mark and Lisa exchanged a look. Neither spoke. Because deep down they both knew. Something was still watching. Mark and Lisa stood frozen at the base of the basement stairs, the girl's final words hanging heavy in the air. The house was silent now. No whispers, no shifting shadows. But something still felt wrong. The air was lighter, the pressure from before gone. Yet neither of them could shake the feeling that they weren't truly alone. The dog nudged Mark's leg, his brown eyes searching his face, as if waiting for a cue. Mark exhaled, rubbing a hand over his face. We need to get out of here. Lisa nodded, but her eyes lingered on the spot where the family had disappeared. Do you think they're really free? Mark hesitated. I hope so. They climbed the stairs, their steps careful, half expecting the house to shift again, to pull them back. But it didn't. The walls no longer pulsed, the shadows no longer twisted. It was just an old, broken-down home now. The front door remained wide open, the night air cool against their skin as they stepped outside. Lisa glanced back one last time. We should burn it down, she muttered. Mark considered it, the thought of leaving the house standing making his stomach twist. But something inside told him fire wouldn't erase what had happened here. Some things couldn't just be destroyed. The dog suddenly perked up, ears twitching. Then, without hesitation, he trotted toward the trees. Lisa frowned. Where's he going? Mark followed, flashlight still in hand. The dog led them through the overgrown yard, past the rusted remains of a swing set, and toward the edge of the woods. He stopped at a shallow patch of dirt, sniffing at the ground. Mark's chest tightened. Lisa, look. The ground had been disturbed. Recently. Lisa crouched down, running her fingers through the loose soil. Someone buried something here. Mark grabbed a branch and started digging. It didn't take long before something hard scraped against the wood. He tossed the branch aside and used his hands, pushing away more dirt until the shape underneath was clear. A wooden box. Lisa helped pull it out, both of them tense as Mark pried it open. Inside, wrapped in yellowed fabric, was a small leather journal. The pages were worn, brittle at the edges. Lisa carefully flipped it open, her eyes scanning the handwritten words. It's a diary. Mark leaned in, reading over her shoulder. The entries were dated from nearly 2 decades ago, the handwriting uneven and rushed. As Lisa flipped further, she suddenly stopped, sucking in a breath. Mark followed her gaze to a page near the end. The ink was smudged, but the words were still legible. We made a mistake. We should have never listened. The house doesn't belong to us, it never did. It's watching. It won't let us leave. Lisa turned another page. He told us we had to stay, that if we left it would follow. But we can't take it anymore. We're leaving tonight. If anyone finds this, we're sorry. We never should have come here. The final entry was short, barely a sentence. If you're reading this, it's already too late. Mark clenched his jaw. The family knew. They tried to escape. Lisa exhaled sharply. And they didn't make it. A shiver ran through Mark. What if they weren't the first? Lisa didn't answer. They both knew the truth. This thing, whatever it was, had been here for far longer than just one family. And if they hadn't stopped it, it would have waited for the next. The dog whined softly, drawing their attention. He stood at the tree line, looking back at them expectantly. Lisa closed the journal, tucking it under her arm. "Let's get out of here." They walked back toward the car, the weight of everything they had seen pressing down on them. The town had no idea what had happened in that house. How many others had walked in, never knowing what waited inside. Mark opened the car door, but before getting in, he looked back one last time. The house stood there, quiet and unmoving, just an empty shell. It looked so normal now. Just another abandoned place left to rot. But Mark knew better. Lisa settled into the passenger seat, staring straight ahead. "We can't just pretend this didn't happen." Mark started the engine. "Whoa. But I don't think the house is done with us either." Lisa turned to him. "What do you mean?" Mark hesitated. The girl's last words. "It's not over." What if she wasn't just talking about the house? A long silence stretched between them. Then Lisa whispered, "You think it's still out there?" Mark didn't answer, because deep down he already knew. As they pulled onto the empty road, the dog curled up in the back seat, his eyes still fixed on the house, watching. And somewhere in the distance, beyond the reach of the headlights, something watched them back.